Ready? Okay, let's do it.
When considering my ideology of education, what education should be, I first had to consider what I believed education was for. This led me to make a list of the 7 most important things a student who had left education should be. They should be, in my opinion, respectful of their surroundings and those around them, confident in their ability, interested in challenging themselves, proud of their individuality, emotionally and socially literate, able to manage their assets and make accurate judgments of value, and internally aware of their physical, emotional, and psychological needs. I contemplated the idea of adding happy to this list. However, I decided this was not a result of education, but something completely intrinsic. That being said, I think it is important that extrinsic factors, such as education, don't detract from a student's happiness. Reviewing this list and placing it within the context of what I have learned during my studies, I believe my ideology most closely aligns with an individual-based approach to learning. If the 3 key approaches, individual, society, and knowledge-based education, can be seen like this, I would place my ideology here. Over the course of this video, I aim to expound upon why I feel this is the best approach to learning, and how I think education should function to this end. By the time a student is old enough to leave compulsory education, they will have spent over 2/3 of their life in the education system, so it is of paramount importance that school is a useful, positive experience that adequately prepares students for life outside of school. Since very few adult institutions resemble conventional classrooms, it seems only logical that the structure of a classroom should be equally fluid. Ensure a range of styles and settings, allow children to learn as much from each other as they do from the teacher, and are given opportunities to learn from their natural environment. This encourages a strong sense of being part of a community. It will teach children both to respect the opinions and intelligence of their peers and better understand their place in the world, and the responsibility that comes with that. This forms a strong basis for the first item on my list, respect for their surroundings and those around them. It is necessary for a child to understand both how they can affect the environment and their peers, and how the environment and their peers can affect them. The second item on my list, confidence in ability, is a question of competence but also of self-esteem. It is vital that children realize the extraordinary things of which they are capable, but also have an awareness of their limitations, and what they can realistically do to move past those limitations. Educators can help children achieve this by setting high expectations and ensuring that children are confident in their ability to meet them. I have seen from my studies and from experience that an increase of expectation has a colossal impact on attainment. Children are capable of incredible insight and critical thinking. They often only need the encouragement and inspiration to do so. Therefore, it appears to me that an increase of expectation across the education system would bring about a huge improvement in attainment. Even those who are considered to be of lower ability can do great things if only they are adequately motivated. When differentiating a task, a teacher shouldn't assume the lower achieving students are capable of less, simply that they will need more support to understand what may come naturally to others. This simple adjustment of expectation represents the rising tide that lifts all ships, and will serve to assuage the difficulties faced by low achievers and expunge the potential complacency of the high achievers. After all, good enough simply isn't good enough. The third item on my list, that students should be interested in challenging themselves, could also be described as a passion for learning, and an acceptance that learning doesn't stop when formal education does. Education works best when it is based in what a child finds interesting, and to this end it would be beneficial for a teacher, especially at primary school level, to offer multiple modes of learning key knowledge and skills. Having condensed their significant understanding of a topic into its key elements, a teacher should be able to present these in the manner they feel most appropriate and engaging, whatever form this may take. A teacher should always ensure that pupils are asking themselves, "What can I learn from this?" It is more important for a child to be aware of their own learning than for any external moderator to be able to measure it. A child arriving at new information through their own intuition is far more rewarding and memorable. When a challenge in school proves too much, education should create a culture wherein instances that would conventionally be seen as failure are treated as a learning opportunity. Students should be encouraged to reflect upon their experiences, assess their own strengths and weaknesses, and formulate strategies of what to try next. In this way, educators can hope to foster in pupils a lifelong interest in learning and challenging oneself. When considering the fourth item on my list, individuality, it seems pertinent to examine the role education has played, and could play, in allowing pupils to find and be proud of their individuality. The increasing emphasis on core subjects has led to the marginalization of the more artistic side of education, which includes subjects such as art, music, dance, and drama. This could possibly have a negative impact on the creativity and individuality of a pupil, especially as these subjects are typically seen as more expressive. I believe that creativity is the best way for a person to discover and appreciate their own individuality. In my ideology, education should give its students the tools and the desire to use the information they have obtained to create something unique and original, to dismantle their own learning into its core components and use these as a basis for exploration beyond the parameters of their experience. The fifth item on my list is less individual-based and more socially focused. By emotional and social literacy, I am referring to a person's ability to express their thoughts and feelings to those around them in the most accurate and explicit way possible. This skill can be thought of as a kind of social operating system, used by everyone, which has its basis in an understanding of social convention and expectations. In contrast to the others, the sixth item on my list is the only one that might be considered wholly knowledge-based. Although some items have touched upon the need to learn how to learn, and while this may have its roots in basic literacy and mathematics, I consider it to be a choice on the part of the pupil, and therefore a more individual-based aspect of education. The ability to manage assets and judge value is a form of knowledge which historically could be learned through tuition and experience. However, in the modern age of credit cards, contactless payment, and online banking, it's very rare that a child sees much physical money, leading to a decreased sense of its worth. Unfortunately, due to the sheer convenience of technological advancements, it's unlikely that physical money will come back into circulation. So the responsibility to teach children how to use money falls increasingly to their parents and the education system. For future financial stability, it is imperative that children learn how to accurately judge the worth of purchases, and to manage their assets appropriately. Lastly, I believe that students should be internally aware of their physical, emotional, and psychological needs. And while many children will find this naturally through an inherent sense of self, there are those that will require guidance, be it through group-taught PSHE lessons or one-to-one sessions with counsellors. Some final thoughts on my personal ideology of education relate to the methods of examination and the governance of education. I have separated these two pieces as they relate not to pupils, but to schools and education as a whole. Firstly, I strongly believe that formal, summative assessment is a false and irresponsible way to judge a child's ability. In my time at school and outside it, I met many talented, gifted, extraordinary individuals who had failed academically simply because they couldn't sit an exam. Exams place students under unnecessary stress. They often involve information with little to no real-world application, and they are hugely biased in favour of those with stronger memories. In short, exams are overvalued as a measure of a child's intelligence. Instead, any kind of assessment should be formative and as informal as possible, so that students feel comfortable expressing themselves. Furthermore, this better reflects how their ability will be judged outside of education. While timed examination may be an efficient way of ascertaining what a student can remember under pressure, they are unlikely to encounter anything similar in the world of work. And finally, I am of the opinion that education should be under the governance of elected officials, preferably experienced retired teachers accountable only to those involved in the education system, teachers, parents and children, and not the current government. Though this would likely mean relying more heavily on public funding, it would mean that education is not subject to unpredictable and transient reforms. Under the current system, a child could see several changes to the way in which they're taught during their school career, and I believe that this lack of consistency has a hugely negative impact on education, since children lose understanding of what they are expected to achieve, and teachers are exhausted in their efforts to meet vastly different demands in quick succession. Under a system created by former educators who have worked in schools, meaningful adjustments can be made to teaching, and, crucially, these changes will be thoroughly considered beforehand and adequately supported afterwards. This is my ideology of education, what it can be and what it can do for those involved. Thank you for listening.